I'm a big fan of Mori Calliope. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. The VTuber boom of the past couple years has brought with it dozens and dozens of new creators and artists to be a fan of. But out of all of them, the one I grew attached to the most was this silly rapping Reaper. At first it was because her songs were just kinda catchy and fun, and for some reason I've developed a very strong affinity for cool beauties with long pink hair. Truly, I am a basic bitch when it comes to waifus. And then, she dropped Cursed Night, a moody and melancholic track containing a single line that echoed an idea that has sat at the core of my very being ever since I started making YouTube videos. The notion of leaving behind everything else in your life in pursuit of artistic passion. A sentiment that would be briefly echoed again in End of a Life a year later. And it's this idea that forms the emotional crux of Pompo the Cinéphile, an anime film overflowing with a desire to make art. At the center of this film is Gene Feeney, a PA turned aspiring director when his boss, Pompo, hands him a script she wrote for a film titled Meister and tells him to direct it. From there, the film sprints through ideas left and right about filmmaking and collaboration and improvisation and so much more, handling each idea with care despite its lightning-fast pacing, and imbuing as many moments as possible with inspired imagery that speaks to an astounding level of thought and creativity put into the visuals. All of this comes to a head in the film's climax, in which an additional scene is added to the movie after Gene realizes its necessity to his vision of the final product. In this scene, the main character is seen having a final conversation with his wife, who is leaving him as a result of his hyper-dedication to music causing him to neglect her and their daughter. Because he was so dedicated to his craft, he ended up cutting out everything else in order to make room for his passion. An apt descriptor of how Gene has lived his own life up to this point. Family, friends, pretty much anything reminiscent of a normal life have all been cut out in favor of his passion for cinema and his obsessive studying of film. It's all he has. But this doesn't seem to bother him all that much because he is so enamored with this passion that it fills him completely. And so he cuts, both artistically in the sense of trimming down his movie enough so that it contains only the elements most essential to conveying the film's emotional heart, and personally in how he diverts his attention away from everything else in his life in order to pour as much time and effort as possible into his art because he feels such an intense drive to create something for the world that he believes can inspire others the same way other films have inspired him. And this moment is bolstered by the strongest and most vibrant visuals the film has produced so far, and an incredibly hype insert song as Gene dashes forward with all his strength to obtain the ideal version of his film. It's one of the most powerful scenes in anime that I've seen all year in how it so acutely convinces you of the emotions at play, portraying a struggling artist sacrificing all relaxation and freedom in pursuit of his vision. It's also a lie. Well, sort of. While it is necessary to devote an immense amount of time to your art in order to create something beautiful, going too far with that obsession and making film consumption pretty much the only thing you do inevitably makes you a less rounded person in the long run. Art is a reflection of life, and so you need to experience life in order to create good art. Shutting yourself inside and watching movies all day might give you a strong encyclopedic knowledge of film, but you'll end up lacking in the life experience needed to properly convey a truly human emotion in your art. Now, in fairness, the movie does kind of address this by having Meister be so in line with Gene's own personal experience that this element could be overlooked. That is what the entire back third of this film is about, after all. Gene fighting tooth and nail for additional filming so that he can put the core of himself into his movie. Additionally, his conversation with Alan a little earlier, in which Alan says that Jean's eyes sparkle now, as opposed to earlier when Pompo said that she hired him precisely because his eyes didn't sparkle, implies that Jean is already on his way towards a more fulfilled life. I also don't think it's right to completely write off Pompo's position either. Speaking from personal experience, not having anything else does put a certain hunger in you. An unquenchable drive to make something and show it to the world because you view it as a representation of yourself. That all-consuming need to instill everything into your art is kind of necessary on some level if you really want to give it your all and create the best work you can. Because why else would you put yourself through this much effort for something you're not even sure will be successful? And this is a concept that I am painfully familiar with. When I started going full sprint with YouTube way back in 2017, it was basically the only thing I did. I had a part-time job that only took up about 25-ish hours a week, so I was rarely all that tired after work, and I had even more additional free time to work on videos. I still had my core group of friends I kept in touch with, and they were still really important to me. Hell, I made a whole video about them. But because most of them were gamers, a lot of our hanging out involved online gaming since we don't live all that close to each other, which my laptop at the time simply could not handle, and so it gave me an excuse to go work on videos instead. I even spent entire holidays putting new videos together instead of partying with my family. Whatever I cut out of my life, it didn't feel nearly as important to me as growing my channel and pumping out as many ideas as I could. However, as of the past couple years, this hasn't quite been the case. Around the time of 12 Days Season 2, I got a new job where I actually worked full time. So I had fewer hours to commit to videos and was more tired in general during my free time. My upgrade from a laptop to a heavy-duty PC allowed me to slowly integrate myself back into my friend's gaming circle, and so I ended up spending a lot more time on that than I ever had before, which I was certainly thankful for since it was something I had always wanted, but it still meant less time I was dedicating to anime and anime analysis. I finally got put in charge of the house I live in after my grandma moved away, so now I spend a lot of my weekends on chores and general housework to keep everything in order. So much of the time that I spent toiling away on videos was now dedicated to just normal life stuff. And you know what? I want to say I fucking hate it, but doing normal life stuff and having connections with other people is actually kinda cool and good. I've really enjoyed just existing and deepening my relationships with other people. Granted, part of this was also due to me completely losing my original channel to copyright strikes and having all of my forward momentum stolen from me, but I think this craving for normality was always gonna creep up on me regardless. Yet, at the same time, I really do fucking hate it. Not counting the months of pre-production, the past 3 weeks of non-stop recording and editing, despite the physical toll they've taken on me, have made me feel the most alive I've been in months, maybe even years. Being able to create something that I can be proud of and show it to the world in an effort to connect with other people the same way Gene wants to connect with his audience, even if it's only seen by a couple thousand people, leaves me more fulfilled than anything else in my life. Even if some of the videos didn't turn out the way I wanted them to, I am so immensely glad that I managed to pull all of this off and finally bring my 12 days of anime to a close. If you're not familiar with the Christian calendar, the 12 Days of Christmas is originally the period spanning the birth of Jesus to the arrival of the three Magi on January 6th, a date known as the Epiphany. And 3 times now, I've tried to have my own epiphany about what exactly I'm trying to do here. For each season of 12 Days of Anime, I centered each video in a given season around a certain idea. Singular concepts that I personally view as the core pillars of creating art. Empathy, identity, and... I was gonna tell you what this year's theme was, but now that I'm here, I don't think I want to, or even need to. Y'all are smart enough to see through my cryptic ass anyway if you look real hard at it, so I'm just gonna leave it up to you to figure out. As for whether I succeeded with whatever I was trying to do, well, I honestly don't know. There's still so much that I haven't said. So much that I couldn't even fit it all into over 3.5 hours of anime analysis. And that's something I'm gonna have to live with. Some stuff just has to get cut in order to make a concise and compelling message. For as bombastic and captivating as it was, there's no room here for a 12-minute tirade like the end of Season 2. And I don't really think that's the mood either. Even though that one ended on such a confident note, I have to admit that I may have regressed a bit as a result of my change in circumstances. It's no longer a matter of, do I want to keep doing this, but rather, can I keep doing this? Will I have enough time in the future to put out all the videos I want to? Am I even going to be able to keep coming up with ideas worth talking about? Is it all going to work out in the end? I don't know. I really don't know. And there's something almost painfully unsatisfying about that uncertainty. But in the end, I think that's fine. Because I'm still here. And I'm still making videos. Scraping out as much free time as I can to keep on creating my own art in a way that still manages to bring me endless joy. All I have to do is keep cutting. Special thanks to Rourke Tenjoin, Chris Adili, Ryan Johnson, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.